Eddie Olczyk here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Eddie?
I'm doing fine, Rich. Nice to be with you again.
Thanks for coming back on the show. So, which is the best team in hockey right now? Tell me who you think right now has the best shot to hoist the cup. Eddie.
Oh boy, I would probably lean towards San Jose just by a smidge right now, just with the way that I don't say they've had their way with the St. Louis Blues in the first couple of games. I know they split there, but they just seem to be going on all cylinders right now. Their big guys are playing well. Joe Pavelski, the captain of the Sharks, is, I still believe, one of the more underrated players in the National Hockey League, and he is leading by example. They play fast, they play big, they're getting scoring from everybody. Their defense is very mobile, and their goaltender, Martin Jones, has played really well. So, look, both series tied up at 1. But to me, with the way that the teams have played so far in the conference finals and their respective conferences, I would give the edge to San Jose by just a smidge.
So who do you think San Jose will wind up playing in the finals?
I'm not so sure that San Jose is going to win the series against St. Louis, because look at St. Louis. Like they took out Chicago. They had a chance to get rid of them early in the series. They ended up going 7 games. They had the same opportunity to do that against Dallas, get rid of them in 5 or 6 games. They weren't able to do that. They had to win it in 7 games. Like, St. Louis is a really strong team. Their general manager, Doug Armstrong, Rich, has done an incredible job here the last couple of years of really changing the makeup of their team. They've gone away from, maybe a heavier team, a bigger team, to a more skilled team, and it's worked wonders for them, and they've played really well. Maybe they got a little tired here in the first couple of games in the Western Conference by not ending the series. And when you got a chance to do that, I don't care what sport it is, you can't let a team hang around, because you got to play those extra games, and maybe it takes its toll somewhere down the road. And right now, St. Louis looks like a little bit more of a tired team. Now, in saying that, in the East, like, I thought I gave Tampa the edge because they've been there. They can check really well, but Pittsburgh at times in the series has had their way with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So going in, I felt that St. Louis and Tampa were the 2 teams that had the edge in my mind. But as the series has gone on here, all of a sudden now San Jose looks like they have control of that series going home, and now Tampa's at home, still in a driver's seat because they've earned home ice by splitting with Pittsburgh back in the Berg for the first 2 games.
Eddie Olczyk of NBC Sports joining me here. But if you give a little bit of a check mark next to St. Louis because they bounced Chicago, then Pittsburgh must get some sort of a check mark for what it did with the Caps, who are left once again with another major ruination of a regular season that had the fan base thinking this was finally it. What is wrong with the Capitals when it all comes down to it?
Well, I mean, look, I don't think that there's a lot wrong, Rich, with the Washington Capitals. I I think that they are right there. The problem with I think what I saw, and I did the majority of the games in that Capital-Penguins series in round 2, but, to me is that, they had a chance to win a game 3 with the series tied up at 1, where they outshot the Penguins. I think it was 49-23. Their power play let them down, and they let the Penguins hang around in that game. And you have to win games when you outplay the other team. Like, you have to do that in a 7-game series. And I mean, even more so back in the day when you were playing the best of 5. So it's almost like in Major League Baseball when you get in the first round of the playoffs. Like, you have your ace going, you got to win that game. And I think for the Capitals is that they missed the opportunity in Game 3 of round 2 to take a stranglehold of that series, and they let the Penguins, that was a goaltender win by young Matt Murray. So, look, I don't think that they're that far away. But again, as we said going into the season, throughout the regular season in the National Hockey League, Rich, is that the Capitals would be judged on what happens come post-April 15th.
Eddie Olczyk,
and it didn't matter how many points they got. It didn't matter the records. And none of that mattered. It mattered what happened come the first couple of rounds of the playoffs, and they weren't able to take the next step. And I think their defense needs to get a little quicker. But other than that, they're right there. And at some point here, I do believe is that the Capitals will break through and finally win their first Stanley Cup.
Eddie Olczyk joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before I let you go, let's talk Preakness. The The post positions are going to be drawn at 5 o'clock today. What do you think Nyquist wants to hear? What do you think needs to happen to get the second leg collected?
I mean, I think that he probably would like to be drawn somewhere towards the outside like he was for the Kentucky Derby, Rich, and being a part of NBC's coverage for the Derby, and then now for the Preakness, I'll be headed to Baltimore from Tampa tomorrow. But
there you go.
To me, I think he'd like to probably be on the outside. I mean, we were hearing maybe 11 or 12 horses entered. Now, the one thing we have to keep an eye on is the weather. There is a strong chance of some rain in the Baltimore area. Hopefully not as much as we had last year when American Pharoah won the second jewel of the Triple Crown, but that could change the complexion of the race dramatically. And if the track ends up being wet or muddy or sloppy, I think you have to look at a horse by the name of Exaggerator, who finished second in the Derby behind Nyquist. He really seems to excel on the off track, and if it is a muddy track and a sloppy track, that might be where my money is going to end up, would be on the Exaggerator if the track is off. But Nyquist would like probably somewhere in that 7 to 8 to 9 post position to have a trip, and he's a talented horse. I'm sure he can run on anything, but I would give the slight edge to Exaggerator if it is an off track on Saturday at Pimlico.
Now, I don't want to start anything with you, Eddie. I mean, you had 16 years in the NHL. And an excellent career, to say the least. How come nobody's ever named a championship horse after you? How come that's never happened, Eddie? What's up with that?
Well, there have been the back end of horses that have been named after me.
Nice answer, but come on,
maybe at some point we might get lucky, and I guess what I have to do is maybe buy a horse myself and name it after myself in some fashion.
Yeah, I know you didn't play for the Wings. I know, and this is I got what the owner loves the Wings or something like that.
Yeah,
and
Paul Redham. He's a Windsor, Ontario native, and has named like 6 or 7 horses after the Red Wings. Look, when you name them after Datsuk and Zetterberg, and you don't get a horse that maybe can, he runs in the third race and finishes in the fourth, but then you name a horse Nyquist, and all of a sudden now the horse has made 6 or 7 Schmill, and now he's won 8 in a row, and he's won the first jewel of the Triple Crown. Right. Maybe it's, maybe it is a little bit in timing, and maybe it is a little bit in the name, and maybe you have to go more European and I guess in Sweden more than anywhere else.
Well, Olczyk doesn't sound like you're from, New Mexico, Eddie.
Well, first off, buy that guy a vowel, would you please? And second of all, I don't think anybody could pronounce it if it was on the racing form.
Certainly Chris Brockman, certainly my guy, would definitely not do that. Hey, Eddie, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. We'll chat soon.
Okay, Rich, have a great day.
You bet. That's Eddie Olczyk of NBC Sports.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.